Yep. All right, it's 5 o'clock on June 17th, 2025, time scheduled for the McDonald Water and Light Commission meeting, and I will call this meeting to order. Trina, could you please do a roll call?
Yes, Mayor Morris,
Here.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Here.
Commissioner Elmer,
Here.
Commissioner Garvin,
Here.
Commissioner Macy Baker.
Here. Great. We have 5 items listed on the consent agenda. Would any commissioner like to remove any items from the consent agenda? I know I do.
Can, item C,
Oh, okay. Item C and then item D, we couldn't open. So we would need to review that. Any other items removed from the consent agenda? Okay, so we can call for a motion to approve A, B, and E.
so moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, so all those in favor are ready to pass. Thank you. Okay, so then we're gonna go to item C, which is purchase of Cascade substation switching equipment. Commissioner Garvin, did you want to start the conversation on that?
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward from a cost perspective and what's laid out in the memorandum. I just had a question if that's a cost that's passed through to Cascade Steel, as it's mentioned in that memorandum, that it's solely for servicing them, or if that's captured in our rate structure, or how that.
So since they're a pass-through contract, that's a direct cost to them. They'll pay the whole bill, including
Okay.
installation costs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then John, my understanding was that the difference that we don't collect the whole amount, but that's because I think it said that part of it is paid by Liquid Air.
No, this is the 230.
Oh, okay.
That's the transformers, and the transformers are a split cost. This is for the 230 kV transformer and the 230 yard.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So this one is 100% Cascade.
No, but the charges. This will wake again. The charges for the two that were being paid for, I think it said that Air Liquide paid
Yes,
theirs on a monthly basis.
that's through their rates, right?
Yeah, so we'll
So through
collect that.
their customer.
And I think
Okay.
that one's down here on this particular item.
That's in the transfer.
That's in the it's not on the consent
Oh, I'm
agenda.
sorry. Okay, excuse me. Excuse me.
No worries, just want to make sure we're answering the
This is the
questions in the
switch.
right.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're on D of new
Yeah.
business.
Yeah,
Yep.
if we could only be there next.
Yes, yes.
Any other questions in regards to item C on the consent agenda? All right,
So we're looking for a motion, finding that the purchase of the substation circuit switcher from Lesco is the quote that best serves the interests of water and light in accordance with ORS 279B 070 regarding intermediate procurements, approval of the purchase award, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign as required.
So moved.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, passes. So then we are going to go to item D. But we'll need a full explanation on it. Oh,
Marcy.
hello.
Yeah, and just goes,
Yeah.
just leaves.
Did you open it all?
When I redid the home thing today, redid it opened.
Oh,
Oh,
But
gosh,
when
I
it was
did
sent
all the
out-
times and I never did it. Okay,
So a
welcome.
discussion of this item?
Yes, most of us couldn't get it to open at all on our
Oh,
iPads.
okay.
So we just need a complete overview.
overview of what it is. Okay, so back a few years ago, when was that? 2020, we added a loan program to our Oregon Savings Growth Plan. So employees here it's a deferred compensation program, and so they will put in their own money from their paycheck into that plan, and it grows, it's a 457 plan, grows similar to a 401k, that kind of plan. And so we added a loan program where an employee could borrow that money from their account, and then they pay that money back to themselves with interest. So as part of that, the commissioners were interested in gaining a little bit more information to make sure that they were looking at the fiscal responsibility of these plans. And so we have since that time provided links to a couple of documents. So I provide their PERS annual financial report and the VOYA financial report for the commissioners to look at and see that they have been audited and
Yeah.
are satisfactory.
Should we move this to the next
Yeah.
agenda?
I'm gonna wonder if, because what you're saying is you haven't had the opportunity. to review
No,
these
we
documents.
can't, we still can't get
So I think probably
it.
the right thing to do would be to postpone this in the next meeting, allow you to do that.
I think so too.
Yeah, it just, you touch the link and it just kicks you right out of
Yeah.
call to order.
So maybe that's what we do, is just move this into July.
Mhm.
So we need a motion to take it off the agenda.
Operating system.
Does that affect with the fiscal year coming? Does that affect anything?
No, it's
It's-
information only
Okay.
for you.
Yeah, you're the fiduciaries of the plan, so it's just it's an opportunity for you to look at those financial documents, just so you can see them, see that you're satisfied with them, you don't have any questions about them. You don't currently have any employees in this loan program, but
Okay,
that's the point of it.
okay, so we should have that.
And as we look at them, does staff have any concern with what the documentation shows?
No, it's been standard since we started gathering the data. I've compared them year to year and it's providing the same data as the previous year
Okay,
for the
thank you.
most part.
And there hasn't been a problem
No.
for us or for anybody else as far as you know.
No,
Thank you.
no, and the loan program has worked out well we've had 3 participants. And it's worked out well for all 3.
Great, thank you.
participants.
Yes, so motion to move this matter and this item into the July meeting.
So moved.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Marcy. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the accounts payable and purchasing reports. Are there any questions on those reports? Hearing none, I'm gonna move on. We have no new employee introductions tonight. Next, we have consultant and partner reports. We ask Brent Keller, Forester, to please update the commission on the forest management activities. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, A1 logging is finishing the final trucking from the 2024 300 401 road sale, which is purchased by Boise Cascade. To date, roughly 400 loads have been shipped to Boise and other destinations. I'd like to clarify, I apologize. Estimated volume to date is not a little over 2 billion board feet. It's 2 million, rounded 2,080,000 board feet. So I've with the MBF, for those folks that don't know, that represents 1,000 board feet. So we did not ship 2,000,000 board feet. So I apologize for that. The other thing I wanted to point out is a few years ago, it became misleading when so the loads are accurate. Like here, 400 loads at the time of this letter, 400 loads, and the volume of a little over 2 million feet. That's accurate for what we have on the books basically that day. But I'm only reporting now the value to date for what Waterlight's actually received. And in past years, I've taken like the loads and the volume and then figured, well, this is the estimated value that would be represented. But a few years ago, we had someone that hadn't paid. So it's looking like that all this, it might look like all this money is in the bank here when it might not be. So now I'm just going to report. So it could end up being staggered where you'd have a bunch of volume and not like last month, it was a bunch of volume and not a lot of money to date. Well, that was why, because I think that like a payment showed up like the next day and then 2 weeks later. And so now it's a little closer. And next month it'll be fully accurate because the sale's done. But that's why sometimes the numbers might be staggered a little bit, is I don't want to report the value that we don't actually have. So that's more clear.
So Brent, make sure I understand where it says estimated value to date. That isn't correct. It really is estimated payment or actual
Sure,
payments.
payment.
That's actual payments.
Okay, but can you make it so that it says that next time, please?
Okay, so I'll make a note that that's the
So,
payments that received by water and light.
yeah, that's fine. And then,
Okay.
and so that's why it's lower than the total of
Correct.
estimated value. Okay.
Correct.
Great. Okay. Yeah, if that would be helpful if you would.
Yeah,
do it that
I'll
way.
just make a note of that, but that's what's actually being reported. I just don't want it to be misleading.
And then if you'd also keep a little closer eye on the numbers, please.
On my decimal point there. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
you bet. You bet. Yeah, I apologize for that. In 2024, Stimson's gonna hang on to the 2-year sale, the 350 sale until 2026. And then I've been anxious for them to get started. I mean, they're still on track if they get started now. And I did talk to the log buyer this morning, and Olson Brothers will begin cutting on Monday. So I'm anxious for them to get started on that sale. And project work for the 730 sale, which includes road brushing and road clearing, is currently underway. So, and as of right now, it's not officially fire season in our fire district. So, but I anticipate they'll start that before the 4th of July.
So they don't have to be out by 1 right now?
No,
No.
there's nothing. So A1's done. They've moved out and they got out before fire season at all. So.
And then do we just, for our watershed, we just stay with whatever the district and the state says, or do we have any water and light policies that vary from that?
No, we just follow the industrial precaution levels of ODF. And then, of course, water and light we have our own fire truck and fire and water tender at the treatment plant. And we have a nice brand new, as part of that water line project, we have a brand new fill-up station there below the dam. So,
But we do change our protocol, so we do patrol the fence lot, the gates outside the what, to make sure there's no entry points.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's good.
because we don't want, yeah,
Human cost.
exactly.
And the fire truck is up there now?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Brent?
Glad you can make it after the 9th inning.
I thought win or lose, I put the shirt on this morning. I thought, well, we'll see what happens.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Yeah, they lost in the 9th. But they came back in the top and then lost in the bottom.
That's too bad.
Rough day to be a beef,
Yeah. It was
but they didn't.
an emotional roller
Talk to you
coaster.
later.
All right, we have no appearance requests on the agenda for tonight, so we're gonna move on and ask Chad Hudson, our purchasing manager, to update the commission. Hi, Chad.
Yeah, so every year, usually around the first of the year, we look to kind of, in our public contracting policy, a lot of times new laws come out about that time that may impact our purchasing policy. So we did that as usual. We looked, there's nothing that impacts our policy as written that's included in your packet tonight. One of the things that we have been looking at staff for a little bit has been credit cards. One of the things, the changing landscape of way businesses are operating nowadays. And how that impacts staff internally. So we've been using the credit card program, the one card program for US Bank since 2018. And that we've had 2 or 3 users, and it's been a good program for us. But as we progress, through COVID and to where we are today, there's more and more vendors that are requiring credit card payments as a source of payment. We've opened that a lot, especially vendors that we've never used before. Or vendors that are gonna be one-time vendors. We know we're never gonna use them before. We don't wanna allocate staff time to create a vendor in the NISC system. And then use them once, as opposed to the efficiency of using a credit card as the tool of payment. So we kind of started diving in this, and we've been working on this policy for a little bit. Since the new year, if not longer. That's why we're here today in June. So some of the proposed modifications that we have the public contracting policy that's included in the packet tonight, redlined. We're looking for comment from the commission. Basically, the policy, we're looking to delegate authority to the general manager to oversee the credit card program. Currently, we do not have a standard practice. We don't have a whole lot of documentation behind our program. We just have a couple of people using it. As a part of the delegated authority, we've created a standard practice documentation on the process of how to use our credit card program, training requirements. We included a user agreement, which we've never had before, that only bolster our current program, the processes that we have. The proposed program would expand the program to managers with departmental budget authority. The responsibilities is noted in section 4 of the attached standard practice. The budget authority that we've had, we've changed the budgeting process here recently. And so this gives us the department managers more control over their purchases and see what's coming through to make sure that all the general ledgers, everything's coded properly and going correctly to their budget line items. Couple other modifications that we had to section 10 of the public contracting code was new roles for the water and light program administrator. Removal of an emergency card, which isn't even an offering through the one card program. Basically, if you don't use your card, I'm not sure what the duration is, we'll say 1 year. It goes inactive. So that just having a card there sitting on the shelf for emergency purposes isn't a thing. So we're removing that. And then also amending the credit card limits as specified. It's staff's opinion that the revision of the credit card program will increase our controls and efficiency of our procurement process, allow managers to more effectively manage their budget, making sure that everything's getting coded correctly to their budgets. Staff is just presenting this tonight for review and comment from the commission. It would probably come back to the commission at a later date with the recommendation.
Okay. Any questions for Chad? Comments?
If nobody else does. So Chad, first of all, I don't want you or staff to take this wrong, because I completely trust you. I completely trust everyone in the staff. But I think my job as a commissioner is to look at this and say, well, you know, what could go wrong? And so my first question is, and I asked Sam this, and I think he was going to check, and he may not know yet, but is our agreement with the credit card company such that they recognize the limits, but either in the merchant code or the amount, the card gets used and they pay it, or they accept the card, are we on the hook still?
I think the answer is yes. We'll be on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we would be on the hook. So then the follow-up question is, what I heard you say this will have more controls than the current system. But if because under the current system, the employee has to go to a supervisor to get the check, right? Or to get a check approved or a contract approved.
Like the purchase.
Yeah.
Purchase order.
Before.
Yeah, whatever the credit card be used
Right.
for, you're using the check now, right?
Yeah, on the back end for payment. we're
Yeah,
using the check.
And
That will remain the same if I'm following. I mean,
well, you'll pay the credit card bill,
Right.
but the expenditure will have already happened, right? You'll have already, the money will be gone.
Yeah.
And so how does this protect water and light more from somebody who might
Right.
not follow the guidelines?
Yeah, so it's the same. I mean, right now it's the same. I mean, we're purchasing things and we're paying after the fact, after the purchase, so that's
This-
not gonna change.
This shouldn't change our contracting policies in terms of.
No, but somebody is going to have to show an invoice before a check is written now, right? And
Yeah,
gets
so-
approved.
So what we do, yeah, so the reconciler's position or job is to make sure, well. And the person that the credit card user is responsible for gathering all the receipts, all the appropriate documentation for the purchase. And coding it, and then it would be directed to the department manager. For approval, but it's after, you're correct, it's after the purchase.
So if a purchase is made now, if it's, let's say, for an inappropriate purpose,
Correct.
okay? If that happens now, it doesn't get paid probably because the manager or the reviewer catches it, right?
Yeah.
But if the credit card has been used to do the same thing, we're on the hook for it, right?
Yeah, we'd be water and light would be responsible to pay for the credit card transactions that are not fraudulent, that, you know, some third party.
Right,
has
no, I
got our credit
understand
card,
that, but
any-
if
yeah,
an
any-
authorized user uses it inappropriately,
Yeah.
so how is that, how does that give more protection to water and light than the current system?
Well, currently, we don't have a credit card, user agreement that basically, I mean, you have to sign on.
No, I'm talking about the expansion and going
Right, okay.
from purchase orders to you just use it with a credit card.
Right.
Can I take a turn at that, Tom?
Sure.
But what I'm hearing from you, Tom, is that right now somebody goes down to Davison's, for instance, charges fuel filters or whatever, and then at the end of the month, that's reconciled with those fuel filters were actually for a Mac Water and Light fleet rig.
Right.
And a check's written. And what Tom's saying is, how do we know, or how are we protected as an organization if somebody goes down there and buys fuel filters for their personal vehicle with the Water and Light credit card, because Davison's has already been paid with the credit card?
Right.
And what's the recourse for that? And the way I read the agreement was disciplinary action up to dismissal is how I read but as far as money goes, we would be eating that cost up to $1,500 per transaction or $2,500.
I think what I heard them say is that we have that limit, but they could use it for a much larger transaction. If the credit card company accepted the charge, we'd be on the hook for that, right?
So
I think
digitally, credit cards, when you set up the cards and the limit is there, it will automatically deny.
But
But I think what Tom's saying is if they say they have the credit card, they use it for a personal purchase. And and then we get that's already paid out. And then that bill comes back to us. So we have to pay the bill now because it's in our name. How do we reconcile or make sure that we catch that person using that card inappropriately?
we know whose card was used,
Right,
Number
that's the
one.
first thing.
and so then they have an agreement that they're not gonna use it for personal use.
But I mean, something in Tom's talking about is the controls of that, making sure that in the process someplace,
well, and
that gets caught.
yeah, and then Adam, are you positive that the bank never lets a charge through that's over the limit?
I see that at my business with commercial vendors when they come in and don't want to name any local businesses, but people come in and tap the card for a spray and bed liner or for something, and it's
Right.
over their $500 limit or their $1,000 limit, and maybe we had 4 fleet rigs on that bill.
No, and that's the way it's supposed to work, but
Yeah.
I've actually
my
had experience
perception
with
is-
that here at McMinnville Water and Light. I tried to use a company credit card for a purchase and it rejected me because we've hit the limit. So I've had it happen, so it does work.
And we see that at the fire district when we were transitioning and we had low
Mhm.
limits because we had no credit yet.
Right.
So there's a lot of those auto
But,
denials.
you know, to your point, Tom, I think we had a little, Mark and I had a little bit of discussion with the bank
Mhm.
vendor this afternoon, trying to sort of figure this out.
Thank you.
And it was, if what she said was, if you ended up in what she called, it was some kind of a force. Or there was forced something, but anyway, if you were in a forced sell, maybe that's it. Where you basically were in a situation where you were in a process of a purchase. And it's sort of, you initially didn't hit your credit limit, but the purchase sort of continued on past it. And that could be, I'm not exactly sure what that situation might be, but you could sort of force sell over the limit in certain situations. Where the credit, they wouldn't catch it until it hit again, until it was, it was presented a second time. That might be a situation. But back to your point, I think it is true that, fundamentally, if it's an authorized user, the credit card's used, the credit card's authorized, payment is made, the company won't be liable for it. There just are checks and balances in place. And ultimately, it's the checks and balances in place that are the protection.
And to that point, that was my question, is I saw in the agreement talk of, submitting receipts, but I didn't see any measurable in there, like receipts need to be submitted with the P card form within 24 hours or 72 hours, or if we were gonna have any sort of metric in there that's measurable, and then if that metric's violated X amount of times, P card privileges are revoked.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something that we would address and clean up if it's not in here already. Every month we get the statement in the reconciler, if they're missing anything, they're knocking on your door, like, or right now, like, you need to get your stuff in. But that's gonna be responsibility of the cardholder as well as the approving manager to make sure that all the documentation is turned in a timely manner. There is stuff behind the scenes too, if this did get approved, like any NISC does have stuff that you can actually approve everything electronically. Things can be uploaded from US Bank, and I believe transactions, don't quote me on this, but we can find out. Like when you go on a purchase, would email the approving manager and let them know that a purchase has been made. Or you can do an upload file and send everything over at once, kind of like a holding tank.
Okay, that sounds helpful, but how much easier is this change on staffing than what we have now?
It really is.
Yeah.
I
would say, the old PO system is
Yeah,
really inefficient.
So one of the things that I think Chad has experienced is we've actually have vendors now that are charging us if we send them a check.
Yeah.
And
There's
an
that
invoice,
too.
an invoice charge.
Wait, I got
for sending
people charged
payment.
me, I choose the credit card.
Just the norm of business.
Right.
So that was when Chad told me, that was a surprise. It's like, what? Now we're being charged if we send a check?
Also, when we were inquiring with US Bank this afternoon, Mark and I, some of the feedback we got from the vendors, US Bank has a program, sort of a protection program. That what we're not clear on, frankly, we asked the question, or Mark asked the question, whether we're already covered. There is sort of a claim process with US Bank where we get a certain amount of coverage. But I'm not sure, at this moment, I can't tell you whether that's something we already have and we just don't realize we have it, or whether it's something we have to buy. It's sort of it's a coverage per employee for these types of fraudulent charges.
And how much trouble would it be to use the NISC system? Is that something that would be another administrative burden, or?
No, that's kind of lurking behind the whole scenes. It's something that we want to implement, but we didn't want to start work on that process until we knew that this was going to be in place. That's going to be coming behind it, is the NISC implementation of it. And the existing card holders that we have now. So kind of the idea of what we have is we have 2 users that use the credit card frequently. Those 2 users would be kind of the test, if you will,
Okay.
to use the program. And once we're up and running and feel comfortable, we kind of start spreading out the program to others. The two people that use the card all the time would be the trainers to kind of get everybody trained up on the NIC system.
And could the policy say that when the policy is adopted, it will, part of the next step will be the NISC system
Yeah.
if it's available?
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's staff's intention.
Okay,
What about the cards themselves, since the interest rate and all of? We checked on any of that information, or do we not?
We typically pay the card every month, so there's,
It doesn't matter. Is there any benefits with it?
we do get some benefits with the
Yeah, we
card.
actually get, we get about.
Cash back, don't we?
$600 a quarter cash back for
Hmm.
use of hardware.
Okay,
As long as it's cash back.
Cash back, yeah.
okay.
a picnic? So,
Yeah,
And how many total cards are we talking throughout the organization?
right now we have two, or three,
But-
right? Yeah, three right now.
With this new policy, it kind of talks about.
The list was here, I don't, it's like
1, 2,
10?
looks like 11, maybe. It was on page, and there's a
I
list.
think 79 or.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh, there we go.
79.
okay,
So it
thank you.
sounds like we would like you to go back and look at the protection possibility. Just the process and,
And then I think also Adam's comment, I thought was a good one too, where the employee has so much time to turn in.
and how
Yeah.
specifically they get
Yeah.
turned in.
Spice for.
All right, anything else for Chad? Great,
Thank you,
thank
Chad.
you,
Thank you,
Chad.
Chad.
Thank you.
Okay, new items, new business. The first item under new business is the property liability workers' compensation insurance renewal. We have invited Finance Director Mark Dunmeyer to introduce these items.
Commission. I'm Mark Meyer, Finance Director.
sorry.
With me is Brian Hartzell from Hagen Hamilton Insurance, and he is our agent of record, and we're grateful for his services. He provides a lot of assistance as we go through this process every year. So I've got a staff report that explains our what we're seeking this evening, which would be approval of the proposed insurance renewal that's included in our fiscal year 25-26 budget. Ryan's going to go over that. I've also got a chart that shows the costs for this year's coming up 25-26 premiums compared to our prior year premium. And we've had some discussion already about some of our insurance coverage and increasing our deductible on our property liability up from 25,000 to 60,000. I did note in the staff report that that deductible is a cumulative deductible. It's not a per occurrence deductible. So that was important to know that. That was asked at the last meeting. So so this evening, we're looking for that approval as well as on the workers' compensation policy that we have with SAFE. They require a sign up on that quote. And so we are seeking a authorization from the commission for the mayor and the clerk to sign that as well. So I'll turn it over to Ryan and he can share with the commission, present the renewal.
Yeah, well, thank you. Hello, everyone. Some familiar faces here. So thanks for having me in to talk about the insurance with the commission here. So this was a rather interesting year because every 3 years the insurance company for water and light is City County Insurance Services, CIS. And they provide a really nice service where every 3 years we get an appraisal of all the properties over a certain dollar amount. The good news is we know the value. The bad news is sometimes, the values go up and then we sort of have to figure out how we're going to work that into, the insurance renewal each year. And so that was completed in December of 24. And the results showed that, we have a total insurance value of $250 million that we need to get up to, up from 231. Some notable ones were Baker Creek substation, a few changes, of course, on, some of the dam valuations there. So that, before we talk about any rates or anything, we're talking about, pretty significant amount increase in our total insurance value. And that's buildings, that's contents, that's property in the open. Anything that, is structure related. So, with that, we're looking at 7.2% increase in our total limit of insurance. And then with that, sort of other things going on, the commission the last 2 years is, between help with Mark and John, we really looked at Waterlight's had a really nice run of not a lot of claims activity on property, on vehicles, on general liability, which has been really, really nice. So how can you sort of take that and participate in some risk sharing where you're saving a little bit of money, but you're taking on more risk? So we look at a lot of, history of where the commission, has made decisions on deductibles, what the claims performance has been for, the employee base. And so we've arrived at, this 25,000 is what we had in place. What is the pricing mechanism to go to 50 and how much do we save? So after, 7 or 8 years of data, we can look and say, gosh, that kind of, that might make sense to save a few dollars to offset, some insurance costs. And so that number at $60,000 was sort of the sweet spot to say, that kind of makes sense. So we have a lot of data, we look at a lot of charts, but we've had a really good run of, not a lot of claims activity. Now we get a lot of requests. So this idea that Mark mentioned where this is cumulative deductible. So we'll get a call roughly that, hey, water main in the house broke and we think it's Waterlight's fault. So we send an adjuster out there to sort of check it out. Was a contractor working on it, the homeowner do something? And a lot of times those claims don't go anywhere, but we work on a lot of those. With this deductible, let's say we did have an issue where there was liability on behalf of Waterlight. The deductible builds on one another. So if we pay out a $5,000 claim, we send the professional adjuster out there. They say, yeah, it was Waterlight's fault. Closest claims are going to take $6,000. So let's say that happens in March. Then we have another one that happens, in May, and that's 10,000. So those two add up to down from that $60,000. So it's nice because, we don't try to have to worry about not turning anything to the insurance company. We're always having this discussion, do we self-insure this or not? We're sending professionals out for ratepayers and customers to get a professional opinion and then pay that and work it back through. So that seems to be a good spot. We really have the data and analytics to show that makes sense. Again, claim costs over since 2019, $2,680. It's very impressive for as much activity as we have going on, vehicles on the road and working with customers and storms and avoiding damage. That's a very impressive number. Several years ago, earthquake was a discussion at the commission level, making sure what do we do in the event of catastrophic loss. So that's always a really hard figure to get. Buying the first 20 million is the most expensive, obviously. But then we have this excess policy with Landmark we've had in place for a while to deal with what happens, in a situation where we have a massive amount of damage because of an earthquake. And we see earthquake claims paid here in McMinnville for those of us that are around in 93. There's few school buildings because of an earthquake, so they happen. Workers' compensation. So far this year, it's been a good run. We'll take it. We're through mid-June, so no claims this year. We've had a couple of tough ones, but we used to have a large deductible on work comp. We moved to SAFE because CIS kind of got out of workers' compensation. We went to a guaranteed plan, and we've actually had a few injuries. There's no frequency in terms of like any trends we see, but the hazards of the job are significant. So we've had a couple claims back the prior 2 years, and it was good. Actually, we didn't have a large deductible because they were fully insured. So that does impact that mod rate a little bit on the workers' compensation. And then, cyber has been a discussion here at the commission level that it was a very unknown marketplace. It seems like it's calmed down a little bit. The pricing this year was pretty stable. CIS, pairs for the first sort of limit of our cyber, and then we buy a specialty policy outside. With that, we look at some real significant things in there, like, what happens with some of Waterlight's partners? What happens if we rely on them to provide service, And what happens if they have a breach and we can't, we can't get out and do what we need to do for customer water light and they're impacted. So we've got some built-in coverage for cyber. So we call them contingent cyber business interruption. So we have some protection if, people rely on, if they've had a breach, we've got some protection there. So pleased to report that's a little bit of a stable market. And I think just, sort of an ending with some new, commissioners certainly on the board here. There's a lot of personal liability by serving on a board and that you get protection personally for serving on this. So if you've been through a lawsuit, they're going to name, they put a water light, they're going to name your name personally on there. So this policy that we have through the general liability, it's public official liability. So you serve on this utility, you have this protection, you're indemnified by these insurance contracts. So something comes in or something's going on, obviously it kind of usually starts, you'll know about something, but let's say you got a written demand for some reason, obviously get that turned in here to Sam or Mark or John, and we'll get that turned in. And you're indemnified, meaning CIS is going to provide your defense in your capacity as a commissioner. So I think that's just really important to know. Don't feel like, gosh, do I need to go out and find my own attorney? No, get that in here. We'll do an investigation, get that figured out. So I think that's just important to know for those of you that are new serving in this, that you're well protected by this policy in that capacity. So what kind of questions can I answer for everybody?
Anybody have?
I had a real quick one.
Yeah.
Somebody,
No,
please.
go right ahead.
Okay.
Good.
So how much are we saving by changing the deductible? I couldn't quite follow that.
So I think it was 532,000 was going to be we had budgeted in the draft budget 518 for our city county insurance policy for our premium. And by doing the higher deductible, if we hadn't done that, the insurance would have been 532. So we would have had to adjust our budget up. But instead, we're adjusting it down to the 507 amount because of so I guess it's about a 25,000-ish or so.
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
That's solely due
From
to
the-
increasing the deductible.
Yes.
So I guess not a very good deal for the insurance company.
You don't get dollar for dollar for increasing the deductible necessarily. And they're going to look at what's the expense for them to adjust the claim,
Okay.
sort of in there. But we look at a 10-year period to figure out what's Water and Light had for claims history versus what they paid premium for these. And then we have a formula we look at if we take this on. So again, we've had 25 and 25 is moved, I don't know, probably 10 years ago from 10 to 25. And they gave us different intervals, but that seemed to be the sweet spot for that
Okay.
savings going to 60.
No, man, if we're
Yeah.
saving $25,000, thanks for catching that.
Yeah, I recommend that. It was a little bit better than I anticipated, actually.
Any other questions?
The risk factor for safe, is that on a 3-year average or what's that run on?
Yeah, good question on that. The current year doesn't count, so we'll have a good year coming on. It's going to be the 3 prior years to that as your experience rating. And the experience rating for Water and Light today, it was a 0.98 for 24-25 and 25-26 going forward, it's going to be a 1.12. We want to hold on to claims years from 2020 because we didn't have anything, but I think the trend will get better because we're going to have a good year. 24, 25 is going to be a good year, but that year doesn't count. So, yeah, we're in pretty good shape on that. And workers' compensation rates is, regardless of what payroll does or your experience mod, workers' compensation rates right now are pretty flat or they've actually decreased a little bit. So as much as we have to deal with a really tough property marketplace, which is the majority of the risk here at Water and Light, where comp's been and relatively, it's a soft market. So we'll take that. We need somewhere in the insurance portfolio to see some relief somewhere. So yes, we'll take that work comp.
Any other questions? We have an action.
Yes.
don't we? Okay,
We've been looking this evening for a motion to approve the insurance proposal included in the fiscal 25-26 proposed budget is presented by Mr. Hartzell. And authorization for the mayor and the clerk to sign the attached FY 25-26 safe workers' compensation insurance renewal form.
So moved.
okay, so I have a motion from Commissioner Tankersley and a second from Lisa Macy Baker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Is there another motion or is that it?
That's it.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
He's staying up here because the next item is the adoption of the 25-26 budget. Mark Dunmeyer is here to present.
Thank you. Okay. I have another budget presentation for you this evening. They're gonna be a little bit shorter than the last few, though. That's gonna bring it up. Yep, that works. Okay, great, thanks. So this evening, we have in the packet the proposed budget. And so what we would be looking for this evening would be adoption of that budget with or without changes. So we started in February and 5 months later, here we are. And we'll present to you really what I'm going to talk about is the changes between the draft budget and the proposed budget, because when you saw the draft budget, you saw the whole budget. And we've done some refinements, some changes, and a lot of that has already been discussed between last meeting and tonight so far. So I'll just kind of update you through that, and then we'll take a look at just kind of the overview. So on the expense changes, I mentioned at the last meeting in the draft budget when we presented that, there was some changes for payroll for our represented employees. We had the previous year COLA in the calculation, and it was at 5%. It needed to be 3% to match the contract for January 1st of 26, which is what's in our budget year. So I made that change, and that dropped payroll costs a little bit. Also, we've just talked about our insurance reductions. And then there was a small increase for our economic development contribution. And then, of course, we talked about at the last meeting, the warehouse expansion. And so we'll look at that and then see how that affects our cash and our minimum cash reserve. We'll look at those same pie charts that we saw in the last meeting that kind of show the budget overview for the light and the water divisions. And then we'll talk about some takeaways with the budget. So
Before you move on, can the commission drive the Ferrari?
Yeah, I was trying to come up with a picture that would represent changes, and I thought, well, with your ship, I thought, oh, that's pretty, isn't it? The gated, very ornate manual transmission setup in those. I don't know what model that's out of. I wish I did.
Looks like a Ferrari.
It is a Ferrari. I don't know what model, but. So the light division on the expense changes. So what I've got is the draft budget, the change, and then the proposed budget. So the change, the first two lines there are payroll expense reductions for the line crew as a result of those COLA corrections. So that drops costs down about $14,500. And then you see the insurance decrease. Part of that is related to the change that we just talked about with the deductible. But also our workers' comp and our cyber policies came in slightly lower, the quotes did, than we had in our draft budget. So we had about an $8,500 savings there. And then the increase on the economic development was a $5,000 increase. So 3,000 of that gets attributed to the light division. So the total expense reduction is just over 20,000. That then drops down bottom line there, net income, and increases that 20,000. So we end up with a $1.56 million net income for the light division. And then same kind of slide for the water division. Changes here are the insurance decrease and the city economic development increase. And the insurance decreases more in the water division than in the light division because of that additional earthquake insurance. And that savings was the result of our the quote coming in less than what we had thought it would when we did the draft budget. Those were estimates, and now we have all quotes, so we know what that came in at. So the net is the $12,333 reduction in our operating expenses, which then puts us just above 5.2 million for our net income for the water division. So then bigger changes on the capital for the warehouse expansion. And you can see, I don't know what
Can you
that's,
move the talking up a little bit out of the way?
I don't know what, oops. Can you?
There you go.
Oh, thank you. So the warehouse expansion, the total increase on that is a little over 6.1 million. So you start off there at the top, our draft budget, the total is 22.6 million. And then we're adding the 6.125 million for the warehouse, gets us down to a total, and this is at the end of the projection, 28,760,000 split between the water and the light divisions here. And so, so you can see for the current year, it's not as big increase. Current year, our budget year, 731,000, but it gets larger in total. All of the facilities capital does as we do the work on this facility and the warehouse in the next 3 years going out. So those changes were 5.2 million on construction, $1 million for design, and then we did have a $75,000 reduction on our pre-construction manager services, and that was really just kind of a refinement of our estimate as we went from draft to proposed. We know better what that's going to cost now. So that's our warehouse expansion increases in our capital. And then the effect on cash. So in the light division, so we have a decrease of our ending cash because of the additional capital of 418,000. So our draft budget, we started at 43.5 million, drops it down to 43.1 million. And then you can see below here on our minimum cash reserve, the calculation changes because we have more capital to include in that calculation. And the capital is the total capital across the 5-year projection. So we add the $6.1 million increase in our warehouse expansion that increases our minimum cash reserve to 25.3 million, up from the 24.5. So that's where that comes from. And then you can see in the out years, we our ending cash as projected drops below our minimum cash reserve. And then I also showed up here at the top of the chart that we do have rate increases that aren't included in this that we anticipate will come as cost of service studies are completed, and we have rate recommendations from our consultant on that. That'll be coming for the light division next month, actually, to get a first look at the light division cost of service. So similar slide for the water division. A little bit less on our reduction of cash for those capital increases in the warehouse expansion. 280,000 drops us down to just a little over 28 million. Interestingly, though, we do have a larger increase on our minimum cash reserve. So for the water division, we to calculate that minimum cash reserve, we go out 10 years and we look at our master plan for that. The master plan includes water infrastructure. It doesn't include like general infrastructure, like the stuff that's happening with our building, vehicles, that kind of thing. And so recognizing that, we added that into that 10-year projection. And so not only do you have the warehouse expansion increase, but we also have the increase of those other capital assets that weren't part of the master plan. And so that increases that by the 1.3 million. So we end up with a $14.7 million minimum reserve. And then in the out years, again, the same situation in light or the water division, where in the last 3 years, we have our ending cash below our minimum cash reserve. And again, also noting up above, these two rate increases are actual, they were implemented. This 5% is part of this 2-year study. This is was recommended. This will come to the commission for consideration early next fiscal year, in the next few months, and the commission will review that and determine a rate increase. And then, of course, we have future cost of services planned in the water division out through the projection as well.
Excuse me, Mark. So the 5% recommended, that's included in your budget numbers or not?
No,
Okay,
no.
great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So if that is implemented, the numbers will change.
Mhm.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
So then the same pie chart that we saw for the light division last month, updated with the new expense numbers. There's no change with our revenues. And then we had a $419,000 increase in expenses driven by the warehouse expansion, which then gives us a $419,000 cash decrease. So those are our final numbers. But when you look at the overall budget, it really looks virtually the same in terms of percentages. And just because it's not an insignificant amount, but when you place it against a $54 million budget, it doesn't really move percentages. So, and then the water division, similar here as well, no change in our revenues, our expenses. We have a $278,000 increase, and then a corresponding decrease in our cash. Again, with the virtually the same view in terms of visual and percentages and all that as we had before. So our takeaways, small operating expense reductions. So reductions are good. They weren't huge, but they were reductions. So that's a positive. Also, the warehouse expansion change, that adds approximately 6.1 million over the upcoming 3 years. We did discuss at the last commission meeting that even with that increase there, when you look at a present value and a future value calculation, there's 2 to 3 million in savings depending on how you calculate that. So beneficial to do that now from a financial standpoint, as well as you get the use of the facility now rather than in 10 years. So besides the warehouse expansion, there's a number of other significant projects. Of course, the largest is the headquarters building work that is planned, plus the expansion, but there's a number of other significant projects. So there's a lot of capital that we have in our budget. We do have operating losses, which we've talked about. They're offset by strong non-operating income. And that gives us good, strong net income in both divisions. But nonetheless, and we've talked about this, cost of service studies are very important because as operations changes, as capital changes, we need to continually look at our rates to move our operating losses towards break even. And also to ensure that we have funds for capital requirements and to stabilize our cash balances. So I mentioned that light is nearing completion, and the commission will be seeing that, and we'll be doing the water cost of service next year. So that's what I got. Questions?
Can you tell me how the amounts for the cash reserves were determined, and how is it stated in our, whatever our bylaws, or what's our obligation or the intent of trying to keep those? I mean, is there a consequence for going below them, and I mean, what do you guys look at that?
So there was a policy that was put together last year. I think it was July of 24 by the commission, a reserve policy, minimum reserve. And the calculation is there's 5 kind of criteria. They're a little bit, they're similar between the two divisions. But there's a couple of differences, but they're driven from things like the number of days. I guess it's like a 45-day where you don't have income, you have expenses, how much cash do you need on hand to cover that. But there's several different kind of criteria. The water division has one that relates to self-insuring the watershed for fire. So there's a number of different provisions in there and you calculate each one. The biggest one is the capital requirement. So we look out for the light division 5 years, for the water division 10 years, and then it's a percentage of that total that gets included as a determinant to calculate the minimum cash reserve. And so we did that for both divisions, and then as far as what happens if we drop below that, that would be a commission consideration and decision as to what to do. But we have that as a guideline, a number, and just to be a flag to say, hey, we're dropping below this, and then it would be a conscious decision to do that by the commission.
Is that policy on?
It's under on the Minville documents, it's financial reserve policy.
Okay.
So that's in there.
Second one.
There are specific actions laid out in the policy if we are to fall below the minimum cash reserve. So at the very last page, there's 4 different steps that it outlines if we fall below the minimum.
Okay.
Funny to hear her and not see her.
You can probably stop sharing.
Any other questions on the budget process that I loved?
No, thank you.
I just
Again,
appreciated that it was divvied up month to month, and so it wasn't just this huge, like,
Yeah.
2 to 3 day download.
It's easier on
Yeah.
staff too. So
Yes.
it's good both ways. We're grateful. Thanks.
No, again, Mark, this is so much easier for the commission to follow and make a good decision. Thank you very much.
We have an action.
Yes, we've been looking for a motion to approve the proposed water and light fiscal 25-26 budgets for the water, light, and fiber divisions.
I have a motion. Okay, so I have a motion from Commissioner Macy Baker. And we have a second.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Elmer. All those any further discussion? All those in favor? Say aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Next item is an update to the electric and watershed wildfire plans. Director James Burke
Good evening.
and Brian Stickler.
All right, James Burke, Engineering and Operations Director. I'm gonna have Ryan Sticka, our Water Superintendent, and then I'll also invite up here Brent Scrivener, our Senior Electrical Engineer, to do some
Okay.
brief discussion as well. Before I get there, let me just talk a little bit about these wildfire mitigation plans. We have two plans. We have an electric plan and a watershed plan. The electric plan's mandated, so that's through the state. We're required to have the electric plan. And then for the just as best practices, we have the watershed plan. So just a brief history. Back in 2000, we had a number of wildfires throughout the state of Oregon. In 2021, Oregon legislation approved and the governor signed Bill 762, which required electric utility operators in the state of Oregon to have wildfire mitigation plans. So ORS 957.966, that requires consumer-owned utilities to have and operate in compliance with a risk-based wildfire mitigation plan approved by the governing body, which is this. So every year we bring back this plan and we show you the updates to it and we ask for approval on it. So that's what we're here tonight for. And I'm going to hand it off to Ryan, just talk about the watershed wildfire mitigation plan and kind of go over some of the updates.
Yeah, there's just a couple of things I wanted to point out. So contact updates, I reached out to all the responding agencies, made sure I had the right people and contacts, their phone numbers. We also talked about their foam agent that they use if they had to respond to a fire. It was very important to use no PFAS. So Firebolt and PhosCheck 881 are the two agents that they use, which contains no PFAS, which is important for our water quality in the watershed. And then last year, the commission asked to include the harvest cycle for the BPA transmission line. In 22-23, we clear cut the mature forest stands along the BPA line to eliminate any hazard trees that could potentially fall on that line. So typically we harvest every 70 years. So we bumped that up to a maximum of 50 along the BPA line. And we included that in the update to the watershed plan this year. That's in section 4.6.1 under the timber harvest and logging operations. So that was for the harvest cycle of the BPA transmission line. Other than that, I think those are the only points that.
And Ryan, that's the area outside of BPA's easement where they keep the vegetation down. So it was trees that they didn't have a right to cut, but we're voluntarily saying we're going to do it. Okay, thank you.
Any questions for James or Ryan?
One quick question. Is there anything you need from us to make this wildfire mitigation plan easier to work on or better?
I don't think so.
There's a lot of effort that goes into it behind the scenes on our part, but I think it's at this point, it's still being fairly new to us. It's been working very well, I think.
Yeah, and there's a checklist that we go through. I think it's actually in section 4 as well, just to training with ODF every year. We perform that. And then just making sure that all of our apparatus has a proper tools during the fire season. So
Well, I appreciate you always refining it, but please, if there's something you need from the commission, let us know. Okay.
Any other questions? Adam, did you have one? You look thinking.
Yeah. What's, to my knowledge, we've never done a brownout or anything like that. I
I
know,
mean, a PSPS, public safety power shut off.
yeah,
Yes, we have not done that.
and PGE's kind of ramped up their policy around that. And so do we feel confident in leaving ours where it's at, or kind of what's the risk matrix that goes into that?
We do, and Brett can talk a little bit more to that, but we feel pretty confident. Now we revisit that every year. We talk to that.
Okay.
And we have the ability to do that if we need to, right?
Yes.
With the policy. Yeah.
So one of the things that we've done is that's why you'll notice that the brushing contract amount is higher now, because we used to be one crew, then we were 1.5. Now we're 2 brushing crews. And so we've stepped up our brushing along those overhead power lines specifically for those reasons, so that to limit power, PSPS as much as possible. And then I think the other thing we do, and I can talk about this or step in there, is we also during red flag issues, we will put all our system protective devices in one shot to lock out, meaning that if it senses something or something happens on the line, it shuts off immediately. We don't have a cycle where it goes through and will then reclose back into that, potentially causing a fire. So we actually shut that off immediately.
It's all just an electrical wildfire mitigation plan, so Brent's gonna talk in more detail. So,
Thank you.
yeah, good question.
So on John's last point, I'd like to tell you all that we started doing that when, John, you 5 years ago?
In a while, yeah.
And I have a vacation house that's in an area that's much more wooded and it's served by a co-op. And like 2 years later, I got something from them in the newsletter saying, hey, we're gonna do this now. So our staff was ahead of somebody who was in a place where there was a lot more forest land and a riskier place. So anyway, and I feel really good about what our staff's doing.
Oh,
Thank you, Ryan. Brett, anything else?
Well, so first, the changes on the plan this year, the significant change was related to the reclassification of the state wildfire hazard map. OSU was tasked by the Senate under a bill to develop a map for, among other reasons, to help public agencies objectively prioritize wildfire hazard reduction efforts. And that is predominantly what we're basing our risk matrix on as the result of that. So the map has been refined through public comments in July and August of 2024. And the final published version was available on the website January of this year. So the major change was in section 2.1 to rewrite that to accommodate those changes. For our service territory, the risk is classified as moderate. And predominantly in West Hills. So over the last few years, staff has installed some protective devices in that area so that as we're tracking the weather, the humidity and other red flag type warning metrics, we can respond accordingly. So as the risk goes up, we will increase the level of responsiveness to decrease the risk of wildfire up to and including a public safety power shutoff if necessary. But given as how we don't have any high risk areas, that's not forecasted beyond some extreme weather event.
No.
You did have questions. We have two, yeah, we have to say that. Let's start with one.
We have two resolutions. I'm gonna start with, because you have them in your packet in this order, with the electric and the water. So we'll start with the electric first. This is resolution number 2025-9, a resolution by the city of McMinnville, acting by through its Water and Light Commission, updating the electric wildfire mitigation plan. That's 2025-9.
Okay, got a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So Commissioner Garvin and Commissioner Tankersley. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Oh, I have to do a roll call. Excuse me. Trina,
Yes.
Please.
Mayor Morris,
yes.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Yes.
Commissioner Elmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Garvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Macy Baker.
Yes.
And then we have resolution number 2025-10, a resolution by the city of McMinnville, acting by and through its Water and Light Commission, updating the watershed wildfire mitigation plan. That's 2025-10.
Okay, got a motion for that resolution.
So moved.
So Commissioner Garvin.
Second.
I'm gonna say a second from Commissioner Lisa Macy Baker. Roll call, please, Trina.
Yes, Mayor Morris,
Yes.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Yes.
Commissioner Elmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Garvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Macy Baker.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, next item is the purchase of 3, here we go, John, substation transformers. And by
Thank you.
purchasing manager Chad Hudson to present the agenda item.
Staff executed a formal request for proposal or RFP process for 3 115 kV substation transformers. 2 of the substation transformers are for Cascade steel mill, rolling mills, and 1 is for air gas US, well, for our industrial customers. We'll get to this here in a second. 2 of the transformers, 1 was installed in 1977 and the other in 1980. Transformer number 3 was installed in 77 and number 4 in 80. They're at the end of their useful life. Water and Light has 2 separate power sales agreement, 1 with Cascade and 1 with Air Gas USA. Each agreement clearly delineates the responsibilities for each party regarding cost and maintenance. Water and Light has coordinated with Cascade pursuant to the power sales agreement. And in accordance with section 11 of the power service agreement, Cascade will make payment to Water and Light under the agreement for associated costs related to the transformer replacement. Transformer number 4 exclusively serves Cascade Rolling Mills facility, and transformer number 3 serves both Cascade and Air Gas. 62% of which goes to Cascade and 38% goes to Air Gas. The costs for Air Gas are recouped through their rates. The other transformer, the 3rd transformer, is going to be purchased for McMinnville Water and Light purposes and is slated for the future 3 Mile Lane substation. On the 29th of May, we had a public proposal opening and we received 5 proposals. Staff evaluated those proposals on the criteria listed in your memo. Included with the memo is evaluation scoring for all 5 proposers. Prolec GE Waukesha was ranked as the highest proposer. The price proposal for Prolec GE Waukesha is valid for 30 days. But the terms and conditions have not yet been negotiated. Staff is seeking delegated authority from the commission to the general manager to negotiate and approve the terms and conditions of acceptable to McMinnville Water and Light. If an agreement is reached as approved by the general manager, staff is seeking authorization to issue to proceed with the purchase of 3 substation transformers to Prolec GE Waukesha on the total of $4,853,000.
I just have some questions for knowledge here. So they are old, 77 and 1980, and it says they're towards the end of their life. Is that a normal lifespan for those? And how do you determine when they're close to the end of their life, but it's 52 months to get a new one?
Yeah.
So tell me how that works.
So the nominal life as set by consensus standards in the industry governed by ANSI is 50 years. They can age drastically faster or slower depending on how they're used over that 50 years. We're starting to see an increased maintenance cost on that. We've recently had to replace the nitrogen protection system on it. Some of the transformer bushings, auxiliary components are starting to fail. And so it's time to start looking for a replacement.
So one of the things that we monitor is every year we do oil samples, and I might talk about that.
Yeah, oil samples in the industry have been found by monitoring gas and other dissolved gases in the oil. You can kind of determine indirectly if the insulation of the transformer has been damaged or if the oil is undergoing decomposition. On average, these have been nominal over the years. They haven't really shown any major signs of concern.
Okay. Interesting.
So it's predominantly just the age that they're starting to use their life, but it doesn't seem to be an emergency replacement or anything.
And these are critical components for the mill. If they lose a transformer, they would lose production for a significant amount of time.
So what were to happen if you lose one before the 52 months?
We would probably try to do some switching. We do have the ability to move the transformer if we have to. We do have an energized spare. that we could use in a short term. At East McMinnville, we could move one transformer from there over to the mill temporarily. But that would still probably take a week to 2 weeks to install.
Interesting. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes.
Sounds good.
So
That's good.
on the reimbursement amount, the 2.3 million seems to be less than the 2.8 total. Is that difference because Air Liquide or whatever their name is now is paying theirs over time and Cascade's writing a check for their share?
Correct, that's just.
Great, okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. And we have an action item again.
Before I read the motion, I'll just make a note that we, just in dealing and working with Mr. Hudson, we have not come to terms with Waukesha today. We haven't reached a contract. We'll still have to reach a contract with Waukesha. So I'll just say we'll do that. You'll be delegating authority to the general manager to approve such a contract. He may, in his discretion, bring that contract back to you. That would be probably a special meeting. He decides to do that, depending on what the terms are negotiated. So I just point that out. So finding it, this is a motion. Finding it most advantageous to Water and Light pursuant to ORS 279B 060, commission motion to approve issuance of notice of intent to award a contract to Prolec GE Waukesha for purchase of 3 substation transformers pursuant to solicitation RFP 2025 power transformers for a contract price of $4,853,000. Subject to successful negotiation, the contract is approved by the general manager, no protest being filed. Authorize the mayor and the clerks to sign the contract documents.
Our motion,
So moved.
Commissioner Elmer. A second. Commissioner Macy Baker. Okay, this one I gotta ask you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Chad. Next up is this reciprocal training agreement with Canby Utility. We have Director James Bird.
Here with
Hi.
Gene Croce, project superintendent as well. He's put a lot of work into this contract. So this is a reciprocal training agreement with Canby Utility Board. And this is something that we have an existing agreement also with the city of Monmouth as well in regards to this. So we have an existing agreement with Monmouth that we've used before, and this has worked out really well for both us and city of Monmouth. This one here, we're requesting tonight, the commission adopt the resolution approving a reciprocal training agreement with Canby Utility Board. This is going to allow us to both Canby Utility Board and Greenville Water and Light have this agreement in place for our apprentice alignment training. So this is something that's really important to us. We do a lot of work on transmission, distribution, and this gives us an opportunity to bring in alignment, apprentice alignment, get some training. It's an opportunity for us to get some extra help, and it's an opportunity for them to learn. So we're asking you tonight as a commission to approve the resolution, have this agreement in place.
So when they're here, they're under Canby's workers' comp and payroll, everything?
They are.
Okay.
And it works well for us, right?
It works very well for us, and
Right.
they're very common agreements.
Okay.
This is, I think, the third time we would have done this. We've done it with Forest Grove in the past.
We did mom and
Mom.
recently.
Yes, so.
That's great.
Great.
I think it's awesome.
Does this offset our need to hire our own apprentice, or it's just an addition to?
It's just to help them. They don't have much transmission work at Canby, so it's just to give their apprentice the hours that they need.
It's really good for everybody involved.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like it. Any other questions? All right, Sam.
This is resolution number 2025-11, a resolution by the city of McMinnville acting by and through its Water and Light Commission authorizing and approving the apprentice reciprocal training agreement between Water and Light and the Canby Utility Board, a public utility district of the state of Oregon. That's 2025-11.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
so I'm going to take a motion from Commissioner Lisa Macy Baker, and a second from Commissioner Garvin. Any additional questions? Okay, roll call, Regina.
Yes, Mayor Morris,
Yes.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Yes.
Commissioner Elmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Garvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Macy Baker.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next item is, I want to hear about this on compensation policy. Invite HR Director Marcy Humley to present this. Hello.
So recently, staff was made aware of an Oregon Government Ethics Commission opinion that public employees or boards may only accept meals provided by their employer if acceptance of such items has been made part of the employee or the board's compensation package. So tonight, staff is bringing two resolutions. So we have two different compensation packages. We have, or compensation policies. We have one for the commission. We have one for employees. And the two resolutions add food and beverages as part of the overall compensation package for those two groups. And then we also included clothing and personal protective equipment in the employee compensation policy.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
So on the food one,
Yes.
so what it's saying is, so I know, I believe in, I'd heard there was a dollar figure to this possibly, but it sounds like you guys have a process, which is good. That it just is one of the things as a commissioner that you're provided. Is that correct?
So-
Am I understanding that correctly? There's no 1099, there's no value placed on the food.
Well, theoretically. Theoretically, if you, with the 1099, the threshold for that is $600 a year. So if we served you really, really good food, we might reach that, but I'm thinking maybe not.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood this whole process.
I'll
So,
take some chicken over some brisket.
but you figured out how much you
We're trying-
spend and how many times we're here, and it's less than
Trying to
$600.
I also understand just from the feedback I've gotten, I first became aware of this because I was getting listserv from the Oregon City Attorneys Association. And this sort of blew up on the listserv. And so everybody's dealing with this at the moment. And I think it's probably going to be addressed. Word on the street, League of Oregon City will probably try to address this in the next legislative session.
In the short session.
Next, yeah.
And what do you think they'll ask for?
Probably an exception in 244 to
Okay.
basically to the ethics issue relating to compensation.
Okay.
So to allow for this as an exception.
Okay,
I'm guessing. That's
okay,
what-
great. Thank you.
Seems logical in the volunteer
I'll
hours.
just note that fortunately, back in 1981, the commission was farsighted and granted
Oh my-
eating
oh my
meat.
God.
So we found that and I went on a mining expedition. So you're okay, because you can't grant yourself compensation. So this is not actually effective to you all until you roll into your next
Term.
term. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we have two resolutions. Let's start with one.
Might have to stick around just for that, Tom.
You also start with the commissioner compensation. This is a resolution number 2025-12. Resolution by the city of Midland combined through its Water Line Commission adopting amendments to the commission compensation policy. That's 2025-12.
Okay, so motion.
So moved.
Okay, so I'm gonna say motion by Tankersley and a second by Commissioner Garvin. And I need a roll call, please.
Yes, Mayor Morris,
Yes.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Yes.
Commissioner Elmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Garvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Macy Baker.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so then we'll go to the next resolution.
The next resolution is resolution number 2025-13, a resolution authorizing and adopting rules and procedures for employee compensation by the New England Water Line Commission.
Okay, motion. Do we have one?
So moved.
Commissioner Elmer,
Second.
second from Commissioner Macy Baker. Roll call, please.
Yes, Mayor Morris,
Yes?
Commissioner Tankersley,
Yes.
Commissioner Elmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Garvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Macy Baker.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you.
All right, next item is a stormwater utility billing discussion. I'd like to invite John Spence, as
Thank you.
customer service manager.
All right, good evening.
Hi.
So in your package, you'll find the memo, discussion of the anticipated stormwater fee and the addition into the MAC water and light billing system. In that memo, you'll find the timeline for the process that we went through in adding the city service charge a couple years ago. And through that process, we also have updated our customer policies to address integrating city chargers into the billing system, payment allocation among all of our different providers that we have, and also removal of fees to prevent disconnection of electric and water service. Staff wanted to bring this to the attention of the commission just to discuss the eventuality of the stormwater fee coming, open up for discussion how we'd want to put it on the billing system. So questions, comments?
Okay. So, first of all, the commission has decided twice now, at least twice now, that we will not cut off our customers for a failure to pay anything other than water and electric charges, and also sewer charges we've done historically, because I was convinced that that's okay, because we can't really sell people water if they don't have a sewer. So, and I think it was the right decision to do for a couple of reasons. One, we don't really want to cut off grandma's power for her heart machine because she's not paying a city service fee or a stormwater fee or anything other that really doesn't impact our ability to provide the service. And second, I think I remember from our first discussions that there is some question about whether we even could if we wanted to, both under the charter and under perhaps consumer protection law. So I would, and the city, I think it was the city engineer, came a year ago and wanted to talk about this, and the commission, I think, was real clear to him that we're not gonna cut the people off for failing to pay a stormwater fee. And then I read in the paper, I think it was in August, that there was some discussion at a council meeting about the city would like us to do that again. So I would like permission from the commission to have staff explain to the city that this is our policy, and currently, if you all agree, we don't intend to change it. And then Sam, I ask you if there was a policy that said we won't do it now rather than just we may not, and you told me there was another section.
Yeah, well, I think
it's not quoted here.
Yeah, it's partly addressed in the right, in the memo, you see section 2.6 of the in the customer charges. It talks about in part talks about this, where it says in order to avoid disconnection of electric service, water and light for internal billing processing purposes may remove delinquent city charges from the customer service billing. And so that gives and city charges is defined later in the customer policies as any charge or fee that we're billing for the city. So you would include sewer, include the city service charge, you would include stormwater that occurred. So staff has the ability to remove those charges to avoid disconnection. And the reason that's important is because in the billing system itself, unless they can actually pull the charge off, and John, correct me if I'm wrong.
Right.
It will start kicking, the system will start kicking those bills out as disconnection bills, and they'll start applying, the system will start applying more charges to those bills.
Close, it's, with the way the payment's allocated, it goes to electric, water, sewer, then city service charge. There's a point where the balance gets to, right, at 60 days, we cannot guarantee that any payment they give us will not go to anything but the city service charge. So by removing the city service charge before it hits 60 days, we can guarantee or pretty much assume that anything we give them for disconnection notice will be for electric, water, or sewer charges.
Right, so that we're giving customers the correct information that this is the amount you pay in order to avoid
Correct,
disconnection.
and then we know when they give us that money, it will get applied to that balance. If we get anything older in the city service charge and it's the only thing out there, it's gonna hit that charge first.
And this is because our computerized billing system works this way, and it would be
Correct.
incredibly difficult to change it. And if we did change it, then next time they change their system, the whole thing might blow up.
One little change affects a bunch of things, yes.
And I guess on top of that, I'll just point out that under the city charter, in section 53 of the charter, the commission has a very specific authority to set rates and rules and regulations and establish the reasons for shutoffs. What it says, it actually says shut off in the city charter. And the commission has, in fact, in customer policies, listed the reasons for shutoffs or for disconnections. And those reasons include failure to maintain the sewer account, but it doesn't include, for example, the city service charge, or failure to pay the city service charge. And so it also doesn't include anything about the currently non-existing stormwater charge, but it would have to be an affirmative decision of the commission to establish that as a reason for disconnection. So right now, it wouldn't be a reason for disconnection affirmatively.
And Sam, could you read the charter provision for us, please? You read that to me earlier, and
No.
it seemed to tell me what the intent of the citizens was. Sorry, I should have warned you.
Oh, that's okay. So section 53, power to make rules. Said Water and Light Commission is hereby given the power and authority. And I'll jump down, and there's 4 sections. And section 3 says to provide for the payment of water and electric rates and to shut off such water and electric energy from any customer for non-payment of rates or for the violation of any rule or regulation established by the commission. That's the authority provision.
How
Thank
often does this happen? How often?
This would be the second time.
No.
You mean as far as adding?
Oh,
No, yeah, how often get customers, like how often, what's the average?
How often do we turn folks off for not paying?
Well, that.
How often do they get kicked out for not paying? But the city part.
I think-
Yes.
Yeah, the question's.
They
They
don't right now.
they don't right now, but
How
how
often
often do
would
they
they be?
not pay the city?
I don't know. I mean, every day we're sending a file to the city when we bill that removes those folks off from the 30 to the 60 day. I've seen it as little as $100 to as much as 500.
I seem to remember it was around $26,000 is what the city had
Per
uncollected
year.
per year,
Uncollected.
Yeah.
What's that?
out of about 2.2
on it.
million.
Okay, and so on average, like per customer.
It's well.
I
mean,
think
how
when we
many
calculated it
how many
out, it was a
customers
very
is that?
low percentage of
Yeah.
uncollectible.
Okay,
Because I think was it about 14,000? Is that the number I remember for how many customers have this customer charge? Somewhere between 14 and 15,000.
Oh, total?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think somewhere around there.
So that's the total number, because remember, some of our electric customers are outside the city limits.
right.
So that's why it will be lower than our customer count for electric.
It's fairly
Yeah.
low. Who's not?
I remember it being about 1% when I,
Yeah,
Looking
it's
at it.
not very
Yeah.
much.
I mean, that's,
Pretty small.
yeah.
My position, I'm not willing to turn off somebody's power and water on a city service fee.
Yeah. Actually, I'm sorry. So well.
And I did state that at that city meeting. I just don't think it's the right thing to do.
So does the commission feel comfortable with our staff at our instruction, just telling the city, since the city has a lot of new people,
Mhm.
that this is the policy and this is why the policy, and the commission has said it and affirmed it.
Yeah, I think what I heard in that work, I think it was the work session you guys had,
Mhm.
was GF wasn't here when that city service fee conversation happened, and so he just seemed oblivious to what was going on or the history behind it. So, but I'm with Mayor that,
Maybe
you know,
shouldn't know.
So I would also add, when Jeff came from Beaverton, and they built sewer, water, wastewater, sewer, water, stormwater, and they did disconnect there, but that was because it was all tied to the city. Here, it's not the same. I think he assumed that it was the same. It's not.
Clean Water Services doesn't do any of that up there.
They did some, they was kind of split around,
Oh,
it was
gotcha.
kind of odd. He said some they do, some they don't. Parts of Beaverton were not, it was kind of a weird. But yeah.
I think for simplicity, maintaining a common policy that's already been well worked through.
Yeah.
Do either of you have any other input?
I would agree with menu. I think that's a reasonable stance.
Thank you.
Okay.
So can we just provide direction or?
Yeah, I think you're sort of workshopping it here, and maybe we'll reflect something in the minutes to that effect, but it seems like the consensus is that you've given Mr. Dietz direction on this issue.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As far as an ordinance goes, what is the obligation if the city wants to impose something? Are we, as a commission, if they want to bill out anything, are we required to add that to our bill to send out?
Up to you.
I mean, is that something
that?
I mean, I'm just, from a standpoint of, as representing water and light, if the city comes with anything, do we have the ability to?
You're
say
right
yes or
now,
no?
you're operating under an agreement with the city,
Yeah.
a cooperative agreement. To bill services, to bill the city service charge and the sewer fees.
Okay.
And it would be my position that, you independently, you run the water and electric system. And without such an agreement, you don't have the authority to bill on behalf of the city. So you really need to have that agreement with the city to be able to do it, because otherwise, water and light, the commission deciding to send out or directing staff to send out bills for sewer or city service fees is something you don't have the authority
Okay.
under the charter or state law to do. So I think I would say that you, without an agreement with the city, which means you have to agree as a governing body of essentially what operates as a separate entity, that needs to be in place before you can do it.
And
So basically, if they come for stormwater, it would be something that would come in front of us again, because it's an additional fee.
Yeah.
So we have the vote to decide yes or no.
And city service fee, what we charge them for bills, it's strictly pass through, or is there a multiplier on there like we do for water? Or?
I think it's designed to be just a cost charge. In fact, we're under our agreement, it says we're affirmatively attempting not to collect any more than it costs us, because we're not a tax funded entity. We don't want any of the city's tax revenue. So we need it to be just a cost-based service. And I think we have an obligation to return to the city on kind of an annual basis to try to kind of true up that.
So you might explain why we don't want to be tax basis. What happens?
Well, we don't have any tax basis, and I think I know where you're going with this, but we're exempt from the public budget law, from the local budget law, because we are not a tax funded entity.
And Sam, as I remember, the agreement that was negotiated and we entered into gives either party a year or two window to say we're canceling, right?
I think I think it's a 365. I'd have to go back and look.
Okay,
I think
but
it's
there's
365, right?
either the city or the commission can back out. And finally, John's gonna smile, but it was a lot of work for our staff to make this thing work. John spent a lot of time working on it. And the reason the commission thought that, and staff too, thought that was important is that these bills, the cost of these bills affects the same, our customers, in the sense that they're also citizens of McMinnville. And for the city to start its own billing system, it seemed to the commission that was going to be very expensive, and they would just pass that on to our customers in the form of a higher city service fee. So it seemed to us that we were helping not only helping the city, but helping our customers ultimately by doing this. And that was the reason, not that we had to, but we just thought it was a good idea.
Okay,
I have one more question.
Yeah.
What percentage of customers are on auto pay? Ish.
So I know, actually some time ago, before you guys were on the board, we got credit cards approved.
Yeah.
With no fees.
Yeah.
We thought that there was gonna be a huge jump in credit cards, and we have seen over time a credit card take over as the number one spot, but believe it or not, auto pay is number two. And the reason is because it's part of our application, and it's one of the options given to a customer when they sign up for service for auto pay. So I would.
So we have about what, a little over 5,500 customers that are on credit cards right now.
Yeah, about a month, and it varies by month.
Pay with, so it's close to $1 million.
There's about, I think this last month, the closest I've ever seen it was within 200 payments auto pay was. So about 5,000.
And it's an auto pay credit card, right? You just automatically get.
No,
charged.
that's strictly our smart bill program.
Oh, okay.
Right, so there's smart bill, then there's
You can still do
auto
recurring
credit card,
yeah.
recurring. And so, so I guess what percentage are on one of those? Yeah.
We've got the numbers, we'll have to.
I do. I didn't come prepared with that number, but I can
It's-
sure bring
it's-
that up for you.
Yeah.
But we're looking at credit cards, then the auto pay check, and then third is still that darn paper check.
Yeah.
Those are by far the number one, top three, and they're
I
really
think, what
close.
are we, like 76 or 77, 75% of our payments are some type of
Yes.
electronic payment.
Yeah.
So it's
But
really
not
5%,
necessarily auto.
But not necessarily correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, but checks, I mean, and I think the cheapest form of payment we have is the e-check. Is that right?
Yes.
20 cents each.
10 cents.
Was it 10 cents?
10
That was,
cents.
it used to be 20.
I think it's 10 cents.
Wow, okay.
Maybe it's 20. I might be getting that confused with online bill payment.
That was 20 cents.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right, so general manager report.
I do have one addition.
Okay.
We have a tour scheduled for June 30th. We're looking at an option for the warehouse expansion of using what they call mass plywood product, and it would potentially reduce our costs significantly. So that product is made in Lyons. So if there's anyone from the commission is interested in attending, we would need to know, so if we have to miss the meeting potentially, if there's a quorum. So I think it's from 10 to 2:30.
And when do we need to let you know?
Well, Trina, can you have if we need to notice it, we can have the notice ready. We can just send it out if you need to.
Mhm.
Okay, so probably I would say,
By the end of this week?
Yeah.
Okay,
that would be fine. I think it could potentially be a significant dollar savings.
It's different than OSB. It's still plywood.
Yes, it's so fun. That was what caught my attention. So.
okay. Was there any other questions on John's report? No? Okay. There
I
are,
said you stopped one.
okay,
You said we stopped spilling June 1st.
Uh-huh.
When do we normally stop spilling?
It's usually around that time, maybe a little bit earlier, sometimes maybe a little bit later, and it sometimes depends. Sometimes we usually refill, so when we would start spilling, it's sometime in December, around Christmas. We've been as late as April to refill, but that's pretty rare. So typically, this is probably a little bit later than normal, because we've had a little bit of the weather has not been super hot. We only had that couple days.
Yeah, it's some drier weather, but not real hot.
Right, exactly. And so I think we're up, I just checked Monday, we're up to over 9 million gallons a day now. So I think when I put that, it was 8. So we're seeing our numbers go up for water consumption.
Thank you.
Did we want to say anything? Okay.
Real quick for that tour, would we be leaving here?
Yes.
Okay.
Probably here about 9 o'clock.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Was
that send out? Was there an email sent?
No, I
No,
haven't sent it.
just right now.
You're gonna, you'll send something out?
I can send, I can send it.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you don't know the date, just. Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, there are financial information in your packet. Did anybody have any questions on those? No? Okay. All right, any other commissioner comments before we go into executive session? Okay, hearing none, we will now be going into executive session. There is no further action to be taken by the commission this evening, so we will not be returning to open session. Ask General Counsel Sam Justice to please read the citation to take us into executive session.
Right, tonight we'll be going to executive session pursuant to ORS 192-660 sub 2 sub F to consider information and records that are exempt from public disclosure under ORS 192-345-23, revealing security measures to protect individuals, building, property, and information processes. And ORS 192-662P to consider matters relating to cybersecurity infrastructure responses, cybersecurity threats. If we have any media here tonight, or not to disclose anything that's shared in the executive session, we will not be returning to open session to take any actions, and we will be adjourning the meeting in the executive closed session.
Okay,